We don't want teams to have to flip between 10 different things when they're out in the field. It should be that, hey, I'll use SurfaceTime for everything, but when I'm in the home, I can use the Pika platform because it's able to serve all of my needs.
Chad Peterman here, and you are listening to Can't Stop the Growth, a platform for leaders and teams to grow and thrive. We highlight the importance of personal development, pursuing greatness, and always chasing your potential. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a very special guest on the podcast. As you've heard me talk before, software and tools that we can use to run more efficiently, facilitate a better customer experience, all of these things can be solved with the use of software. Today, my guest, David Zhao with Pika, is here to talk all things software, what some of the amazing things they're doing over at Pika, and how they may be able to help you and your contracting business. So, without further ado, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met David not too long ago, and we started talking, and I was learning a little bit more about what he was doing and kind of his background. So I guess to get started off, David, why don't you give maybe the listeners a little bit of your background, and then maybe kind of roll into kind of what you guys are doing over at Pika.
Absolutely. So quick background on myself. I actually started out not in the trades. I have a technical computer science background, was deep in research, nights and weekends spent in a windowless basement lab, studied computer science, was doing a lot of AI and computer vision research more specifically, got the chance to commercialize my research, turned that into a company, fell in love with company building, and decided that that was kind of the path I wanted to take. And I put my PhD dreams on hold. Ended up joining Google for a few years. I was a product manager there, and I spent actually the last year and a half of my time there on the Google Home team and the Nest team, working very closely and leading a product around utility partnerships with our Nest thermostat and HVAC products there. I ended up leaving Google about just over a year ago to start Pika with a really good friend of mine, Ryan Zhao. And our goal really at Pika, the simplest way to think about it is we're building a better front office for residential services. And by front office, I mean anything that is really customer facing and homeowner facing. So we know there's a ton of tools out there, the ServiceTitans of the world, the Jobbers, House Call Pros, and there's a ton of other tools and startups popping up that are working on back office software, right? Dispatch, inventory management, actually being the sole customer record, the CRM. But we've realized that there is a gap, and what we're hearing from contractors on the ground is that there's a real big gap when it comes to that in-person experience, right? We know today that there's online sales processes and even B2B software sales processes that are really streamlined, really attuned to customer buying preferences, and that leads to a pretty significant increase in sales. But we haven't really seen that pop up as much in the kind of brick and mortar, face-to-face home services world. So we've built out a platform of tools, happy to dive into exactly the tools that we have live today and maybe even what's coming down the roadmap, but really excited to share more about how we're using software and how we're using AI too to help home services contractors in the field.
Yeah, I appreciate that intro, David. I think you've said a number of things in there that are going to pique listeners' interests. One for me, and I think the one thing that we immediately connected on, mainly because we built our own kind of front office software with similar qualities to what you guys have, and you guys take it even some steps further, which is really cool. From a front office, let's go back into more of that, because I think it's something that can get overlooked by contractors. It's like, great, I have ServiceTitan. It says it can do everything that I need, but I would say that and I think they would agree with this as well, is that the presentation piece, the customer-facing piece, is not as streamlined. The back office, I mean, they've nailed it. It's very good. It's got everything you need. What were you guys trying to solve? What were you hearing from people, which kind of, I guess started you down the road of, hey, this is a viable product that people need?
Absolutely. Really, really great question. I think the most poignant example was talking to contractors who are so deeply embedded into their field service management provider, like a ServiceTitan, right? They use it for everything. And they actually started out using it for the presentations, right? Their in-home presentations to a homeowner. but they actually ended up reverting back to pen and paper, right, for those processes down the road, because they realized that it was missing maybe context. It was missing key pieces of information that actually helped drive a sale out of the kind of across the finish line, as well as not being able to support every type of sales process that maybe their salespeople have really refined over the years. And to see that kind of regression back to pen and paper to us was just kind of it was such an interesting insight, because we're like, okay, that feels wrong. At the end of the day, we think that software can be such an accelerant to any sort of sales process in the home that you shouldn't have to be flipping through manuals of 60 pages that you have to keep up to date in a gigantic Word doc. You should be able to have all of this information and context at your fingertips at the ready, so that when you're actually trying to close a deal, you can pull it up instantly, right? You can be able to showcase whatever it may be that the customer cares about, whether it's bottom line energy savings or bill savings, whether it be environmental impact even, or maybe it's what rebates they qualify for, or comfort impact on their home. We want to provide them with that opportunity to showcase that information in a way that also is very defensible, but we don't want to be very, we don't want to force salespeople to sell in any way either.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very critical point. And I think it's something that we learned too, is like, okay, you got ServiceTitan. And to me, always the best way to work with software is not to try to modify it. It's to try to mold your process around how it actually functions. And I think that works for back office. But then I think from a sales perspective, you have to be very careful when you go molding your sales process around how a software functions, because the people that developed it may not have had that. They want it to work really efficiently and solve a lot of the problems, but it may not be able to solve everything. Tell me a little bit about how Pika kind of, maybe a better place to start, and then we'll kind of dive into this piece, would be kind of what Pika does. Like, what is we've talked sales software. Obviously, you and I talked a little bit about that piece of it. Maybe start there, and then we can kind of evolve into kind of some of the other stuff that you have.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, Pika is a platform of tools, but right now we'll focus on the sales presentation side. So the goal of the Pika sales tool is to be able to create in-home. Imagine you're a salesperson, you've walked in the door, you've had the discovery conversation with the customer, you've done your walkthrough, you have an understanding of what you want to present to them as their options. And today, right, you'd go into something like a ServiceTitan, build those options and present it to the customer. But with Pika, you can actually open up that customer visit and that appointment directly within our platform. You can create your same estimates, and then you can click present. And then now, instead of that just good, better, best view with just an image, description, a title, and a big dollar amount at the bottom, you've actually got a fully fledged presentation that is customized to your branding, also customized to the customer's buying preferences with all of that information. And diving into actually what that looks like, right? You've got AI-generated messages or a cover letter, recommendation letter that kind of replaces that summary field in your estimates, right? We customize it to the homeowner's location, to the seasonality, to what types of systems are being proposed, what they have today, as well as some information about what kind of buying persona are they, right? Are they the engineer type? They want to know all of the nitty-gritty details. Do they care about the environmental savings? Do they care about bill savings, right? So we customize that messaging there. Then you've got information around the actual business itself, right? Like, why should I buy from Peterman Brothers and not the two guys in a van who might beat me on price, but maybe don't have that value and that guarantee and that quality that they come with the installation. And that's really customizable. We can add in videos and images and highlight accreditations and link out to reviews. And then you've got the actual good, better, best, right? You've got your options that you can show side by side. We pull ground truth, capacity, and efficiency information from AHRI for all of the systems that are created. So we're able to directly compare and compute retrospective energy savings. We don't want to be prescriptive about what you could save in the future, because we know that, hey, electricity could spike or gas prices could spike, but we do know your local historical average fuel prices, as well as the last year of weather in your local area. So we're able to actually compute like, hey, you would have saved X dollars had you switched to this new unit from your current system last year. And we're able to also showcase a lot of user education, which makes it really easy to highlight exactly what you're buying or what you should look for when comparing units from a homeowner perspective. And then finally, we've got a quotes page where we auto match all of your systems with any rebates, tax credits, incentives that you may qualify for, because we realize at the end of the day, price is what matters for, let's say, 90+% of people. And we want to make it as easy as possible to understand, hey, if I buy this higher efficiency system, maybe I get a couple $1,000 credit or rebate from my local utility. That can actually move the needle when it comes to selling and kind of upselling on a higher system, because it does reduce that cost differential with a slightly cheaper, but maybe less efficient option.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect overview of what we talked about in a prior conversation. I think, too, pain points that I think that your software really solves are, one is utility rebates and the federal tax credits. And I mean, if you ever try to read those things, my God, good luck trying to figure out what qualifies, what doesn't. It qualifies in this area, but maybe not in this area. And I think you guys take a lot of the guesswork out of that piece, which I think is super beneficial to make sure that your people in the home aren't telling a customer that something qualifies when it doesn't. And I don't think that's, them being, it's just a lot of confusion around this whole topic. But if you are able to present exactly what it is, to me, that's a huge differentiator. Whereas another company that comes in may not have that ability to do that accurately and present the customer with all the right information.
Totally. There's a huge amount of variability, especially when you get down to the utility level rebates, right? They can run out of money at any given day and shut off like next day, right? They can change their qualification requirements. We see this especially for larger programs which have a qualified product list, like an 80,000 row document, which it just basically shows all of the HRI numbers that qualify for that rebate. Those change on sometimes a week-to-week or month-to-month basis. So because we've built out automations on our side, we are kept basically abreast in real time of all of those changes, which is also a benefit because as a salesperson, right, you shouldn't have to think or worry about what is this HRI number and how does that correspond to the per ton rebate? Then I have to do back of the envelope math to get a dollar figure. Like, that is not what you should be focusing on. You're like, a great quote from a customer is asking a salesperson to do back of the envelope math and technical work. It's a fool's errand. You've got the wrong person for that job. So we want to be that kind of source of truth for especially a lot of the quantitative information with rebates and savings. So you don't have to worry about that in the home. It's a huge time saver as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the really cool part that I fell in love with your software was the energy savings. I think anytime we go into and we're looking to present and educate a customer on, hey, going with this higher efficient system is going to be better. Well, what does better mean? Like, how do you tell me a little bit? You spoke about it a touch there, but I think diving into it is an even better way for contractors to maybe understand the benefits of telling somebody why something is better and best as opposed to good. And a lot of that centers around the energy saving. So tell us a little bit more about how you guys go about doing that and kind of the difference between, you mentioned it, not the forward savings, but the, what historically you've paid. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that second point, we are very explicit about giving estimates on retrospective savings because we know that contractors are fearful oftentimes today when they actually give these savings estimates because they don't want the customer in a year to call back and be like, hey, where's my $500, my 20% bill savings that you claimed that carrier has told me on the manufacturer brochure? And we realized that, hey, like we've heard anecdotes of people, they're like, why isn't my bill coming down? And they're like, did you do the right insulation work? Did you leave all of your windows and doors open in the most extreme cases? There's so much that can happen in the future. We know the past though, right? And maybe there could be a heat wave. Maybe there could be a very mild season. So it's harder to give. We can't fortune tell essentially, but we do know historicals. So we have two actually models where we are able to compute those retrospective, let's say 12-month savings. The first is a regional model, which I touched upon earlier. This takes into account local weather, right? So we're computing the heating design days and the cooling design days and making some assumptions about the thermal efficiency of the actual home, but we're able to give a fairly defensible month-by-month breakdown of, hey, given some information that the contractor enters around the efficiency and capacity of the existing system, as well as historical fuel prices. And we, of course, know the ground truth efficiency of the new system because we're able to do that AHRI match. We can actually compute essentially the difference or the delta in cost, right, for you. And the difference is what matters here. We're not going to promise you a fixed amount that you're going to pay per month on a bill because we have no idea what your average usage looks like day to day, but we're able to give you that differential. But for some homeowners, we realize that they want to go a bit deeper, right? This is like that engineer mindset. We see this a lot in places where there's a lot of college campuses, and say you go to a professor's home and they're like, I'm not satisfied with a local average. I really want to dive deep and see what this looks like for my actually home. So we've actually taken it a step further. We've partnered with one of the largest data providers of utility bills called Arcadia. And Kieran, the CEO, is a good friend of ours. And we're able to directly have the customer log in with their utility username and password directly within our platform. We automatically pull their historical bills. And using that information, we can actually generate a really accurate baseline of their historical energy use. So this actually then becomes very personalized. So if they're leaving their doors, if they're leaving their windows open, we will actually be able to see that and take that into account when we're doing that differential calculation. But what I will say is for the, let's say, 90 percentile, the 98% of homeowners, probably even higher than that, 95%, they're okay with that kind of high level overview. And where that comes into play is as they're thinking about a long-term home ownership period, they're thinking about that cost differential and how that actually plays out over time, right? As they continue to pay bills and in terms of also the accrual to home value, right? If you install a more efficient, higher efficiency system, that actually also increases home equity as well. So all of those factors come into play. And again, we're trying to provide the data points so they can make that decision on their own.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I think it really just adds to, a lot of the software, right, is just kind of the glitz and glamour of having a respectable presentation that you can actually sit down with the homeowner and go through. But then I think you bolster that with some of the data that you're able to provide to, the comfort advisor to say, hey, here's some actionable things that you can present that are going to be a differentiator. Because if you're not using if you haven't built a model in your spare time to account for this, you're not going to be able to educate that customer as well as you possibly could with a software such as yours. So I think that's very interesting. So obviously, technology is moving extremely fast. There's a number of different things going on. I guess from your perspective, what are you guys working on? What problems are you trying to solve for the contractor right now that may either be available or, hey, we're really diving into this and this is what we're trying to solve?
Absolutely. Yeah, to your point, it's almost crazy how quickly everything moves in the industry, especially in technology. And we're really trying to keep abreast of that, right? As soon as, say, OpenAI releases a new AI model to really improve the quality of the recommendation letter, we're trying to get that installed and kind of out live in the field same day, right, if possible. But to your question around what we're thinking about and what we're building right now and what's coming down the pipeline, we actually have a new feature and a new product that we launched over the last month, which is around end-to-end white glove rebate management, right? So what we've realized is beyond even just being able to quote the rebate to the customer and in an accurate and defensible way, oftentimes we're seeing this trend pop up more and more. The contractor actually has to go in and fill out paperwork and file paperwork and take photos and upload photos and get AHRI certificates for a lot of these rebates. And that to us has been a huge problem that's been flagged to us again and again, right? It either falls on the actual salesperson who's spending up to hours a day sometimes just collecting the information, working with the homeowner to have them send over the right paperwork and then being able to upload that into a portal while they're on the road. They're literally driving, trying to get connection to file the right paperwork, or it falls on a back office staff member or even the install coordinator who's trying to juggle that job with all the other jobs that they have to do and all the other responsibilities they have to do. And what we've realized fundamentally is that isn't scalable, right? As we see more and more rebates show up, I mean, there's some of these federal, state level rebates that are rolling out. I mean, New York just launched the first tranche of it a couple weeks back. It's going to get harder and harder to take advantage of these rebates and be able to actually actively support them. But we do know that rebates are such a key selling factor for a lot of homeowners because it does reduce that upfront cost of purchase. So our goal is to make that as easy as possible. We have all of the context and information from becoming that front office and becoming that central sales presentation to be able to automate 95, 96% of the work there, right? We still obviously work with the contractor. We work with the back office staff to keep them abreast of what's happening and updated, as well as the customer. But we're able to streamline that process and build technology on our side to automate a lot of the manual paperwork filing as much as possible. And it lets these companies scale their rebates and scale their sales without having to hire additional staff, which is really powerful. So that's the first product that is live today. We're launching it across a couple of states actually this week. We've also got a lot that's coming down the pipeline, looking at what are the other ways that we can build a platform that becomes such a no-brainer to use in the home. An example of this is the idea that, hey, we know that today a lot of salespeople, they have to go in, they have to write a summary on what was covered and what was discussed during an actual in-home visit. So what if we can utilize automated note-taking to be able to pre-fill that summary, save them time, let them go to more jobs in a day, and reduce the burden of just sitting in their truck in the driveway and kind of furiously typing notes as they're fielding other calls or thinking about how to do a follow-up with another customer. And then finally, there's actually another product that we've built out and that is live today, which is around sales tracking. So we know today that once you leave the home, once you've actually sent that estimate out, you really have no or very little to no understanding of where the customer's head is at in the buying journey, right? Maybe you know what they're leaning towards by the time you leave the home if you're not able to close in home, but maybe they talk to their wife, their husband, their kids, and something changes. You have to go and pick up the phone or pick up or send a text message and understand what's top of mind. But that is a very asynchronous process that takes a lot of work on your side. So what we've built into the sales presentation tooling is what we call best-in-class customer analytics. It gives you a playback of how the customer is interacting with the estimates that you send over. You can see, are they looking at the most expensive option, the cheapest option, the middle option? Are they toggling between different financing options? Are they looking at energy savings? Are they actually clicking in and logging in through their utility to get that really detailed view of retrospective savings? And based on that information, you can, before you pick up the phone to make that first follow-up call, have a lot more context as to what could be driving them towards a single option or even driving them to not pick an option or not go with your business. And we found that to be really powerful, just again, empowering contractors with the utmost amount of data so that they can make the best decisions, because we know that they sell very well. We just want to support them in that way.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the problems that you're looking into are definitely ones that I'm sure many of our listeners have. Rebate tracking, I would tell you one that's that may be something to look at is permit tracking. Obviously, permitting is, it's more rigorous in some states than others, especially like California. Like I know they got to go through a whole process out there. But, on our side, it's more on the excavation, and every municipality requires a different permit and so on and so forth. And that can be cumbersome. But I think that those things are things that can definitely help people out. Again, like you said, scaling, whether, can I just put this piece of software in place rather than hiring and training and hoping someone's really happy and benefits and all the things that go into bringing another person on. Well, can I just make the really great people I have right now, can I just make their job easier is the key. On the tracking, sales tracking piece, let's dive a little bit more into that, because I think this is an area where I know we spend a lot of time is, this is a big purchase for a homeowner, and having data on where we can best help them and educate them, I think is critically important. So maybe share a little bit about, maybe someone who's using that piece of of your software and has seen some success, or maybe some of the things that you guys are hoping to achieve with that piece of it.
I think it really boils down to that idea of a buyer persona, right? You get a sense of the buyer persona when you're in the home, when you're having that conversation, and most salespeople we work with are actually quite good at understanding that buyer persona of at least the person that they meet. But very rarely is that one person the sole decision maker, right? Most people consult with the rest of their family or friends after they get quotes to understand what to go with. I went through this myself as a homeowner and got a bunch of different quotes, and I talked obviously with a lot of contractors, but then talked with some of my friends just to say, hey, like, what system should I actually go with? What's the reputation of this specific brand, right? So there's a lot of context that gets lost as soon as you as the salesperson leave the home. And today, right, you don't really have that visibility unless you point blank ask them. And we realize that oftentimes homeowners may be a little bit shy or reticent to actually show and talk about what blockers are in their mind or what's preventing them from moving forward with a purchase. But actually giving you the both reactive and proactive data to make that decision yourself as a salesperson is where we come into play, right? So giving you a video playback of how the customer is interacting with the quote, this type of kind of usage analytics is very commonplace in the digital sphere, right? As you're viewing websites and on e-commerce, there's a lot of work that goes into understanding how you as a buyer are looking to purchase. And based on that, you can be served even sometimes special promotions if you show high buyer intent. Those are the types of technologies that we're utilizing to bring this to that brick and mortar world. And the reason we're able to do it again is because we have that digitally native presentation, which has so much context information that the homeowner can click around. They're exploring the different kind of options. They're exploring the different tabs around retrospective savings and rebates and financing. And as they're looking through that, you can, as a salesperson, kind of view what they care about, and you can come to your own conclusion there. One thing that we're building out right now is actually more proactive notifications as well, right? Imagine you're a salesperson, you can get a notification that says, hey, this person's opened this specific estimate 5 times, and they've been in particular looking at the retrospective energy savings, right? And if we give you that notification when you pick up the phone the next morning, you can contextualize and frame your questions and your kind of talk track to what you know the customer cares about, which in this case is most likely that utility bill impact. And you can ask them questions around what their bills look like today and where they want their bills to be, right? So there's a lot that we think is very helpful for having just that baseline information, but we're obviously innovating a lot when it comes to more proactive help as well and coaching as well.
Now, that makes a whole lot of sense from that perspective. And I think, a lot of these softwares can be, somewhat cumbersome, especially if you're a smaller shop and, you don't have a ton of people running around that can implement this stuff. Maybe give us a little bit, if I'm listening and I'm saying, hey, this is, I think, what we're missing from maybe our sales process or maybe some back office kind of tracking and stuff like that. Like, what's that process look like? Like, I say, yeah, I raise my hand, I want to try this. What does that look like from a start to finish kind of stand up looking thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. You bring up a really good point, which is that change management is always going to be hard, right? The number one thing we hear from sales management, but also even business owners and contractors themselves is, hey, I don't have necessarily the bandwidth or time, especially during, hey, right now, peak season, I'm running leads all day. I don't have the time to change my process. And the worst case scenario is I adopt a new process and it actually impacts my sales negatively, right? Because at the end of the day, salespeople are typically commission-based and there is alignment of incentives there. So what we've done over the past year as we started deploying now across 17 states, and we've done this many, many, many times, is we've really tried to refine that onboarding process so that it's as lightweight as possible. As an example, we take on the 99% of the burden to make sure that our program kind of seamlessly integrates into your field service provider, things like price book, things like your ability to actually create and sync estimates. We have all of that context and that information, all of the templates that you use, that's all directly synced so that it's kind of out of the box ready for your team to use. A great anecdote here is that we actually onboarded someone a few weeks ago at a contractor shop in the Northeast, and it was a 30-minute, I think it was a 45-minute, including Q&A, onboarding session in the morning, early morning during a sales meeting. And by that afternoon, that person had sold a 20K plus job using our platform. So we've really tried to refine it so that it is, again, out of the box. We do the audit to make sure that everything is HRI matchable, that all of your services are linked correctly and to the right equipment. So we take on that responsibility. In terms of the actual rollout process, what that looks like is we typically like to find 1 or 2 champions within your teams, right? So that could be someone who's a little bit more tech savvy or someone who's been really on the cutting edge of I want to really improve my sales processes. I want to just keep going on and they're really on that self-improvement kick. And those are prime candidates for what we call the player coach mindset, right? They're able to get white glove onboarded. We spend a lot of time with them to make sure that they feel really good about using the platform. They're able to use it for all of their jobs in the field. And then they take that learning and they're able to share it with the rest of the team as we do that larger scaled onboarding across your entire sales team. And it's great to have that on the ground kind of resource, a source of knowledge. So if someone has a question, they're like, oh, I'm stuck on this, or how do you do X, Y, Z? They can actually, instead of having to ping us, even though we're available 24/7, they can also ask someone that they trust and they know and who knows their process really well as well. So that's kind of our strategy. We find a couple people, we get them really excited, and then we do a scaled rollout across the entire team. We do that a combination of in person, but also we can do it virtual if that's easier for the companies. And then we set kind of milestones following that onboarding to make sure that folks are liking the platform, using the platform. We can address any concerns or build any features as needed. And we actually recently also launched a certifications program where we actually get you certified to use the platform. We give you a certificate. We enter you into a raffle for sports game tickets and food and beverage credit every week if you're certified. And that also gives us the opportunity to make sure that your teams are actually using the program correctly in home, right? A level 1 certification is you're able to create multiple estimates that are fully HRI matched with the right household information, so you can actually take advantage of all of the features on the platform. And if you submit one for certification and it's missing something, we'll reach out directly to that salesperson, hop on a call, and make sure that they know how to kind of resolve that issue. So we found that to be incredibly successful. Folks are really excited about getting certified. They have their certificate too. They can post it online. And we realized that is also a really nice incentive for teams to get really on board. And it becomes almost kind of a competitive sport, right? Like everyone, we know salespeople are inherently competitive. They love wanting to be the first to get certified or the first to do something. So we're really trying to kind of ride that tailwind when it comes to adoption.
That's awesome. So a couple of things that stand out that I want to make sure that listeners are clear on. So let's just say, for instance, I'm on ServiceTitan. You guys roll this out. Do I have to make any changes to my ServiceTitan side, or is that all integrated? What does that look like from the, okay, I have this new software. Do I got to build a brand new price book? Do I got to do this? What does that look like?
No changes. So no changes from your current flow. And that is really core to our value prop, is that we don't want teams to have to flip between 10 different things when they're out in the field. It should be that, hey, I'll use ServiceTitan for everything, but when I'm in the home, I can use the Pika platform because it's able to serve all of my needs.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we built ours is, okay, the salesperson's going to use this, but everybody in the back office that's taking in all the information and everything, like their process doesn't need to change. Like it's just customer facing. Yeah, we want to be a little bit more polished and have some more tools. But then once the job is sold, it's just moving over to ServiceTitan as if they sold the job within ServiceTitan and no one knows the difference. What about financing? So is that something that they're going to have to go outside of the platform? What does that look like, and how does that integrate with what you guys have?
So we know that there's a lot of really robust financing providers for home services, including GoodLeap, who I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, who helps sponsor this podcast. And we work with those financing providers. We actually have a great partnership with the good folks at GoodLeap to be able to offer that to homeowners very directly. But also we realize that sometimes there's financing that comes from third parties. It could be a state level in Massachusetts, as an example. They partner with a lot of local community banks to offer up to sometimes $50,000 zero interest financing for high efficiency systems. So we're able to also take that into account and showcase that in the platform. In terms of the actual integrations, they'll still go through the same process of getting approved for, let's say, a loan or approved for some financing amount, but we're able to showcase that information front and center. So it also makes it really easy to compare what's the actual cost burden for my family on like a month-to-month basis.
How do you think about, so one of the things that I've been talking about with people, because, as we all kind of venture into, we'll just call it technology, Google, the whole bit, leads are not getting any cheaper. And so it's my belief that we have to go where others are not. And with a massive private equity kind of position in this industry, a lot of them are going to digital, which is then making digital more expensive. What I'm looking at right now is, how do I essentially have a customer build a system? Like, can I run leads to get an instant quote? And what does that look like? What do we need to be thinking about? What's the best way to do it? I saw this at a moving company. Now they're selling moving services, but essentially you build your moving quote online up until the point when you say submit, then it directly links into basically they sell everything over the phone, directly links into their system, and then you're on a call with a presentation and they're kind of closing that. What have you guys put any thought into that? What do you look at from that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And for what it's worth, right? Like we know online leads are getting more expensive per lead or per conversion, right? To your point, there's a lot of dollars being spent. And as a result, the overall cost is going up across the industry. And at the same time, we're also seeing a lot of kind of early indications around direct to consumer selling even, right? I mean, Walmart, obviously with a big announcement that they're going direct to consumer, you can buy a system on the website and they'll connect you with a local contractor to install. And I know there's obviously some controversy around that and kind of what that will actually entail on the ground, but we do know that customers want the like speed, the time to value for them, right? They want to be able to understand, what am I going to get? How am I going to get it? And when am I going to get it quickest, right? Like that, those are kind of the three things that are always really top of mind, especially because obviously we're in a demand industry where your HVAC system breaks down and you're unhappy or you're too cold, you're too warm, and you just want it fixed ASAP. So kind of along those lines, something that we've been working on is the idea of kind of pre-visit information with the homeowner. And we can take that one step further and actually build out a system where we can take inbound leads, right? And folks can actually come in through our platform. They can fill out a form which takes information like, hey, are you feeling cold or hot spots? Does it feel muggy? Are smells not dissipating well in your home? These like really easy to answer quick questions. It should be a very lightweight feel for the homeowner. They can take a photo of their existing system, and based on that, we can kind of understand what types of systems and what even potentially the capacity of the system is in the home. And then based on all of that information, because we have context not only on equipment, but we also have context on what has sold well to that type of customer, that type of demographic, especially when it becomes regional based, we can actually provide recommendations for the contractor when it comes to, hey, you should be proposing these types of systems because we know that they've sold well for other homeowners similar to this person, right? And that's where we can pull in data that's online and public around home ownership, like how old the house is, what location are they in, demographic information, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And I think, a friend of mine, Paul Redman, his company, Contractor Commerce, does this currently and has seen some success with it. And I think that there's just a lot to it. They have people that go all the way through the buying journey without ever talking to anybody, which is really cool. I think there's a piece there, and mainly this is derived out of us. We sell probably a third of our systems are sold over Zoom, where the person is not even there. And so I think it's like, how do we combine those two elements to where we can create a new experience for a customer? And also, again, speed, right? It's like, hey, system's out. I need a quote now. How do I do this? And so to me, that's really, it's an interesting concept, but I think it's something that we all need to be thinking about is, how am I going to go get leads in different places? And, the traditional route is, well, if something breaks, then we send out a service technician and then we do this and then we do that. And it's like, well, how can we cut that process out? I mean, the Costco's, as you mentioned, Walmarts of the world, they've done this, right? They've found leads in their own stores when they know that people are looking there. And I think that's something that, we've all got to be aware of moving forward for sure. David, I guess as we kind of wrap up here, if I'm a listener and I'm like, hey, this sounds like something I'm super interested in learning more about, and I think it could really help our business. Like what's that journey look like? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you and or your team, obviously, and maybe set something up to start taking those initial steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we are a smaller company, and one of our core tenets, actually I spent some time working at Amazon in the past, and I loved, and the thing I picked up most there is this idea of customer obsession, right? Like that white glove service that we will be on the phone with you whenever something breaks. If anything breaks, if you ever want anything, we're going to be on the other side of the phone, ready to kind of help support you. So in that vein, obviously we have our website, withpika.com, withpika.com. But you can also reach me directly at david@withpika, withpika.com. chad@peterman.com. And then I can also send over Chad my cell phone, and you can link that in the show notes, and folks can reach out directly there as well, and ping me or call me, shoot me a text. I'll respond.
Absolutely. Well, I can definitely attest to that. I reached out to you randomly, or one of the two, and we were on a call pretty quickly, just talking shop and figuring things out. But I think as we close out, I think the one message for listeners that I hope they took from your stuff is that, there's a lot of really, really smart people working to make life easier as a contractor. And whereas in the past, we may have kind of spurned technology like, oh, that can't be done, or this, that, or the other. Like, it's here. It's here to stay. And technology is ultimately, I think, our best way to meet the customer where they're most comfortable. We can't take old, antiquated processes and approach today's consumer and just say, well, this is just the way we do things, because there's people out there innovating and thinking differently and wanting to provide better customer service. I think if I think anything about software, especially this kind of front of office concept, it's like, how do we provide the best possible service to a homeowner and essentially retrain them on how they buy HVAC equipment? Like, these are the things that you should be focused on. And these are the things that, are really important. So, David, I can't thank you enough for your time. I'm sure that the listeners got some valuable information. Again, as he said, reach out to him, learn more about this. I think it could be a game changer in your business. And as always, thanks for tuning in to another episode. I know you found today's discussion inspiring and informative as we explored strategies, insights, and different software solutions that can fuel your company's growth. If you enjoyed today, as always, be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform so that you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and let us know what you think. And be sure to reach out to David as well. Remember, growth is a journey. It's all about taking small steps forward every day. Keep pushing yourself, embracing new challenges, and never stop striving for progress. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, and remember, you can't stop the growth.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to get connected, you can find me at chadmpeterman.com. To see what our team's up to, you can visit petermanbros.com. As always, keep growing out there.